Welcome to this week's episode of At the Core. I'm excited to be home in beautiful Durham, North Carolina, the tech hub of the South, home of the Durham Bulls, and one of America's most collaborative business environments. On this week's episode, we'll explore the topics of influence and collaboration, discuss habits, and how habits impact performance. And I'm super excited to have my friend as our guest. She is the leadership and development coach. She is the coach's coach. She is the selling behavior trailblazer, Miss Andora Gandy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ed, for having me.
So Andora, as we've talked about in the past, our goal is really to have a conversation today and let the rest of our audience in on some of the conversations that we typically have with each other when we're together. So to start things off, tell the audience a little bit about you, about your background, and then certainly tell us about your business. Repeat it. Excellence.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for asking, and thank you so much for having me here today.
Yes.
So my background was actually in sales. I've been in sales for 22 years, which it's like I started when I was 5, I tell people. Yes. But I started in sales when I was actually in college. I worked for my college newspaper. And then at University of Alabama, Roll Tide.
Had to get the Roll Tide plug in there, right?
I had to, right? I wouldn't be an Alabama fan if I did it.
Yeah.
And so I started at Alabama in sales, and I actually, my major was in advertising.
Okay.
And I wanted to kind of see, do I really want to be in advertising? So I started selling newspaper advertising and fell in love with it. And so then I started working for Gannett after I graduated from college. And started in sales there and just was there for about 15 years in sales management. And then I fell in love with training. And so I left Gannett because I wasn't sure, I kind of felt like I hit the ceiling.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure if I was going to stay there forever. I was way too young to retire from there.
Yes.
So I decided to work for a software company. And I actually was laid off, which had never happened before. Started my business. Repeated Excellence, and I started it primarily because I didn't know, what am I going to do now? And a friend of mine used to always say, you could do this on your own.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I started some contract work and then started the business, got my first client, and I really started it in thinking, after I really got started, I started thinking about how it's with repeated excellence comes from repeatable behaviors. I'm all about doing something over and over again to make sure that we create really good habits, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I just really focus on helping people to figure out how to determine what is the potential inside of them that they really want to improve.
Okay.
A lot of us don't really think about improving.
Yes.
But I try to do it in a way where we're collaborating and we're working together to figure out what are the best habits for you and what are the behaviors that you really want to focus on. So that's kind of how I got started.
And I love the segue. I love how you blend today's two topics, right? Because I think the audience will really find value in learning more about collaboration. We hear it every day.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about the collaborative environment in the office or of a team. But at the heart of it, what does that really mean? So when you say collaboration, what are you speaking to? What are you really driving in your clients when you start talking to them about collaboration?
Yeah. So when you really think about collaboration, I started thinking about it from first a personal perspective.
Okay.
Because when you think about, I do a lot of conflict resolution training. And in conflict resolution, there is accommodating and there's competing and there's compromising. And when you think about relationships, a lot of times we feel like we have to compromise.
Okay.
Well, there's also collaboration at the core of that the key thing is collaborating. Compromise a lot of times feels as though you are losing something. So if you and I were compromising, you might feel like you got what you wanted, but I feel like maybe I didn't get exactly what I wanted.
Someone's always giving up something.
Yeah,
right?
Somebody's giving up something. But with collaboration, we're working together. We both have a win-win attitude to where you get what it is that you want and I get what I want, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, and words are powerful. We often talk about this, right? The words that we use with our clients in our personal lives, they really drive people to action. So when you hear a word like compromise, you almost get immediate that negative reaction, right? That I am going to lose something. That means I have to give up something in order to get something.
Absolutely.
But what I love about collaboration is, true collaboration, in my opinion, is bringing the best of both worlds together. It's bringing your strengths together with my strengths. You know, one of the things that I've noticed on your website is you had a specific saying is that we are what we do, and excellence then is not an act but a habit.
Yes.
What is that? When it's on your website, it has to mean something to you, right?
Yes.
What does that saying mean to you, that quote? What does that really, what does that mean to the audience?
So, the name of my company is Repeated Excellence, and that's because I want people to be excellent.
Okay.
And the best way for us to be excellent is to have repeatable behaviors, that we do things over and over and over again in order to be excellent. If you think about sports stars, athletes, they become excellent by doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's why, you know, big football players in college, they go off to be NFL players, and they are big stars because they do things over and over. And so one of the reasons why I love that quote is because it speaks to what I stand on, the foundation of my business. That this is about me helping people to repeat their behaviors over and over again so that they can be excellent.
Yeah, and I love that. One of the things that I often have conversation with other people who are in our industry, right, whether that's sales enablement, sales effectiveness, business leaders, is that for a long time we know and we've acknowledged that the way to get better at something is to repeat it, right? Put those muscles into use, right? It's muscle memory then. Why do you think organizations struggle to repeat what they want to get excellent at, right? To use your football analogy, you know, it's great to know that you have to block in a certain way or run a certain route. Why is there still a gap in between knowing that and being able to do it so that you can become proficient in a specific area?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one thing that I talk about all the time. And if anyone's watching who's already seen me train before, you've heard this before. But so I started to do some research, a lot of research on the brain and how does the brain operate. And one of the things that I found was that about 40% of the time, our brain is actually on autopilot. That's why it's so difficult for us to change. I learned that our brain actually, our brain is a little bit lazy. It actually is okay with doing the same thing and not changing something. That's why when people try to lose weight, it's a little bit difficult for them because your brain is okay with you picking up that chocolate chip cookie. It's easier. Your brain goes for whatever is easiest, and that's why you have to do some things pretty drastic sometimes in order to lose weight. It's the same thing within an organization. If our brain is about 40% on autopilot, that means that it's not that we don't want to do it, we just don't know how to do it because we may not recognize that this is my brain saying that, oh, no, we want to go to what's easiest. People don't like to step outside of their comfort zone. And when you start to think a little bit differently, that's stepping outside of your comfort zone, but a lot of times you don't know exactly what to do. So we can blame some of that on our brains.
Okay. I love the neuroscience part. It makes everybody feel good.
Yeah.
So that being the case, it sounds like you've identified a way to help your clients transition, how to work against what the brain naturally wants to do and put into practice some things that makes it a little bit easier for them to make that transformation.
Absolutely. So I'm all about gradual change, and I also have realized that people are different. So if you look at the two of us, a lot of research says that it takes 90 days to make a habit, create a new habit. And I'm not going to dispute that, but I also think that if you and I were going to change something specific between the two of us, and it might take you a lot longer to do it just because it may be a really big thing for you. Whereas for me, it may not take that long for me to do it because it's not that big of a deal for me. And so it could be the exact same thing, but it may take us a longer path to get there just based on our experiences, based on how we relate to change, because some of us are a little bit more apt to change than others. And some of us may not have the willingness to actually want to change. Like, we don't want to,
Absolutely. And I think, statistics are big. We use them all the time. I think what people often overlook is usually that number is the average. And to your point, one person may actually go through the transition a little bit faster, while the other person may go through a little bit slower. I want to take that and then spin that into collaboration.
Collaboration helps you to determine what are some of the resources that you don't have and this person actually might have. And so you have a win-win situation when you're able to come together with a win together attitude. So we're going to win together. And from an organizational standpoint, I think that especially from a sales standpoint, if you think about it, a lot of times we think about ourselves. We're thinking about us. We've got to sell our products. We have to sell our services. And then the customer, they have their specific need. They have a need for a product or service. Well, when we come together and we are asking questions as a salesperson to figure out what is it exactly that you need, and the customer, the potential customer is trying to figure out, well, what is it that you can do to help me solve my problem? That's where we're coming to the middle, and we're actually collaborating. And it's not this push and pull about I want what I want and you need to give me what I want, but it's really about how do we come together.
So, in all transparency, does that really exist? I mean, I think we're we're blessed to be in a position where we know it does. But I think a lot of people that may be listening to this are kind of on the fence about that, right?
Yeah.
Is it truly about collaboration, or is it, I feel that, and oftentimes it feels almost as if the buyer feels the seller's out to take advantage of him or her, compromise, versus collaboration about we're in this together and how do we find an agreeable solution that addresses your needs, and I can either connect you to someone that has that product, or I can provide that product or solution myself.
Yeah.
So is it realistic to think that that environment exists? Is there a mentality shift that we have to go through in the buyer-seller relationship?
I think there is absolutely a mentality shift. So I can't take credit for this. I got it off the video for persuasion. But it talked about an orange. So I love oranges, so I use this a lot in my trainings. But it's really focused on negotiation, but it's the same thing with collaboration. So I have this orange, and do you like oranges?
I do.
And why would you want this orange? If we had this orange here, why would you want it?
I could use the zest in a recipe.
Okay, so you can use the zest in a recipe. And I might want to actually eat the orange. Right. So we have this thing that we're fighting over, but we actually want the same thing for two totally different reasons. And I think one of the things that's so important with collaboration, because we don't always try to understand. So Stephen Covey has his habit number 5 is seek first to understand before being understood. And what we typically do just as a human race is that we want to be understood first before we seek to understand. And I think collaboration, it's about the orange, is I need to first find out why is it that you want the orange, and you have to find out from me why do I want the orange. And that's really where it starts, is I need to first seek to understand what it is that you need, but as the customer also seeks to understand what it is that I might need, and we work together on that.
But is there some risk in that? Because for the customer, if I'm going to reveal to you what it is I need, I have to lower my defenses a little bit and be willing to be exposed to some extent, which I think makes a lot of people nervous.
Yes.
So how do you coach your clients beyond that threshold of, okay, there's going to be some anxiety about lowering your guard, so to speak, but in the end, it's going to be beneficial.
Yes. I love it when those types of things come up because it starts to challenge me and I get really excited.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that is most helpful is that most people don't like to be told what to do. And so by asking questions, it really helps the person, the potential customer, to figure it out for themselves as to why this particular product or service might be beneficial to them.
Absolutely.
So it's not that I'm telling you that my product is the best thing because everybody's using it, or it's the lowest price, or it's the best price, best quality. It's not that. I'm asking you about what you think and how this would be most valuable to you, and then you can figure it out. You tell me.
Right. Yeah.
I like for you to sell yourself before I tell you.
And I absolutely love that thought, right? We always say that logical people don't argue with themselves about what they say.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And there's power in being able to capture. Another benefit of active listening is being able to go back and actually use someone's words to say, in our conversation, you said this is how it would be beneficial, so that people realize that, yes, I did say that, and there is value in that solution, in that service, in that partnership or relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So high performing organizations seem to have this down really, really well, right? Whether you think sports or professionally, there are certain organizations that come to mind instantly that we think of as high performing, and they have a spirit of collaboration. As much as this pains me, the New England Patriots come to mind when it's football.
Yeah.
No matter what changes happen around them, they're always in a position to compete for the big event. How can organizations move closer to that in a realistic way, right? We don't want to boil the ocean, as the old saying goes. Where do they start? How do they even understand where to start? Does it start with a simple partnership? Does it start with using internal resources? Where would you recommend organizations start?
I think the number one place to start is communication.
Okay.
I think within organizations, you hear about some organizations where some people, employees, they don't feel like they know what the upper management is doing, or upper management doesn't completely communicate what the entire organization is doing. So I think that it's with any relationship, communication is one of the key foundations to making it work. And I think there's no different when you're within an organization. Its first thing is communication, and have an open communication. And we are all, even though within an organization there are leaders, we are actually, the employees are also leaders.
Yes.
They're leaders within their organization. For their role, they are a leader. And so I think organizations should really respect that it's not just I'm leading you, I'm the boss of you, but I want to gain your input. I think that's one of the things that I try to encourage when I talk to all of my clients, is that it's not just about you are here and there's a hierarchy. It's really about we're partners. Even if I'm your boss, I'm your partner. So I'm working with you to figure out how to move you forward, and that starts with communication. I think that is the ultimate thing, is communicate, that we need to ask questions. We need to listen. That's number 2.
Yes.
Communicate, but then I love that you used active listening. It's actively listening, and not, it's going back to the seek first to understand and not being understood. It's not about I'm listening to you and then thinking about what am I going to say next. But it's I'm listening to you and I'm really seeking to understand, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? And that, I think, is where it starts. But I talk to a lot of leaders and a lot of sales leaders who they struggle so much with communication and listening.
And it sounds like it has to be the right environment within the organization to have those principles, it sounds like, to really be effective. Right? It has to be the right environment where collaboration is welcome. You can't have this like top-down approach that's driving the organization's directives, or else you do end up sacrificing and giving up some things. And again, that feels more like compromise more than collaboration.
Right.
Would you agree?
I would totally agree.
What about that peer-to-peer collaboration? Is that important? Is there an environment that you recommend to establish that peer-to-peer? How do you get two people that maybe have the same job title or same role? How do you get them to start to have collaboration on that next level, where it's not necessarily maybe a one-over situation where you have a leader involved?
Yeah. So I'm so glad that you asked that, because sometimes with peers, especially if we have the same job title, we might be competing against each other. And it's, I want to win, but I don't want you to win specifically. But if we go back to the orange about finding out about the interest of why do we want, we could possibly want the same things, but we might want it for different reasons. So definitely making sure that you are seeking to understand from your peer and asking them questions. But also what I feel like collaboration does is that it helps to increase your value. It helps to increase your performance, because you may be learning something from this particular person. I know with active listening is about, I know a lot of information, but I can learn so much more from you if I ask you questions and I really listen. But a lot of that doesn't happen naturally from peer to peer. Sometimes it has to be someone who is influencing collaboration within the organization in order for there to be peer-to-peer collaboration. So I always think about in the organization, or you think about a family in the household, it's your family values. As a child, my family values came from my family. And so then now I have a lot of those same values. It's the same thing within an organization. some of those company values come from the organization, from their family, from their parents.
Okay.
And so if you're not collaborating as an organization, it makes it really difficult to collaborate from a peer-to-peer level.
So let's close this section on collaboration. What do you want the viewers out there to know about the value you bring when you partner with an organization for collaboration?
Yes. So one of the things that I'm really big on and I stand on is reinforcement.
Okay.
And it probably goes back to we are who we repeatedly do.
Yes.
So if you wanted me to come in to do a one-day workshop or training, I would decline it because it doesn't work. We learn differently and we may grasp one specific thing. But one of the things that's really important to me is that people are really changing behaviors if they want to. You know, I work with people who really want to see change within their organizations. So if you want to change, I can help you to do that. If you want to change specific behaviors, if you want to change specific habits, but I do it in a way where it makes it gradually, where you're mastering a specific skill, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. I don't want to throw out, I do a lot of things in threes.
Yes.
So I may say
rule of threes.
yes,
Love it.
rule of threes. I may say that there's 3 things that we're going to focus on. And I also am really big on ROI. You know, what's the impact, not from a revenue perspective, especially in sales. You know that if you make the number, then we did good. But it's not just about making the number, it's what are the behaviors that have changed. You know, we were making, you know, we had our closing ratio was at 7% and now it's increased to 15%.
Right.
Or 15% to 30%. What are some of the things that we've seen there? And it could be that you're not only seeing the results from a performance standpoint, but in order to get to those results from a performance standpoint, you've got to do something differently. So I help people to think differently by challenging them, and I also help them do something differently. But I do it in very gradual spots. Like I really focus on what are the most important things. Now let's break that down so that we can master that, and then let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and I love that. You know, this series was created just for that. We're approaching topics that will challenge the way our viewers actually think about a given subject. Not in the sense of challenging them because we have nothing else to do, but really in the spirit of getting better, right? How do we take our collective experience and allow that new experience to challenge us to grow, right? To build up those muscles. We were talking a little bit about the workout theme earlier, right? How do you get stronger so that you can perform at a higher level? Because it's all about performance in today's environment.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, well, thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, of course.
It's awesome being here with you to talk about this particular segment. I encourage everyone in the audience, reach out to us, share it on social, engage, share your thoughts back on this particular topic. We'll look forward to joining you in the next session.